G'day guys, Boat Buddy here again. It's been a while, but yeah, here I am back again, and just to show you guys a little bit of what I was busy with was that 30 Yamaha lower unit with a couple of grey hairs, but getting there, and I think it's a good learning school because always good to learn to see what went wrong and what is faulty before we go to just a new thing. Easy to fix a new thing or to just service a new thing. It's much more interesting to learn from something that has really gone wrong and really faulty. A bit more to learn and things to look out for. So okay, I'm gonna switch it over so I can just show you guys what I've been busy with. Okay, so there's basically all the internals stripped out of the 30 Yamaha. There's the casing. This is a 30 Yamaha two-cylinder, two-stroke. 25 and the 30. It's got the same gearbox. So if you're wondering about that, there's some info on it. Okay, let's just quickly start. Yeah, that's where your prop shaft will go in. And if you look at the top here, here's a view from the top. Shift shaft will go in there. Main shaft goes down here. And that's the little part that I built up last time. So that we didn't possibly have to chuck the gearbox. But yeah, we're not at chucking stages yet. I've got some plans up my sleeve here. So let's see. Maybe I can make this work. Okay. Quickly, let's start with the shift shaft, which is that unit over there. And you've got a sealing in there, that rubber boot with the sealing at the bottom, and your actual selector, that's its stepped selector over there. So basically what happens here is it's got a little grommet, so that grommet goes into that section over there, which is the smaller hole over there. That press fits into there, and then you've got this little holder that goes on there, and what happens there is it goes into that space over there, and as it goes in, sorry, let me just get it better, as it goes in there and you turn this little screw, you can see it's a split unit, splits open and presses against the external around the little sleeve, and it holds this whole unit in place. So basically I'm gonna just stick it down there just to give you guys an idea what it looks like. Right, that's stuck in there. That's how it would have been, just tightened down obviously. And then if you go to this side, you can see it right down in that groove. You move it, you can see there's how it moves up and down. In other words, when you select forward, neutral, reverse on your control, whether it be a tiller arm or whether it be a remote throttle box, that's what will happen to it. It will move up and down. Now there we go. It will move up and down. Given there's no oil or anything in here obviously, so it doesn't move. Actually moves quite smooth without oil, maybe due to some wear. So in the bottom here you will have the following. You've got that bearing that's press fit onto the forward gear. And by the way, that's your forward gear and that's your reverse gear, and that in the middle is your dog clutch. So you've got your forward gear here, which goes in there, and right at the back, if you look there right at the back, you'll see the machined edge. It actually fits in there. That there's an outer race for this bearing still, which we took out, which will go in there, and then this bearing will slot right in there, and you'll push this whole shaft in. Gear will stay in place where it should be. Dog clutch sits there, so if you're engaging, if you look at this thing, if I pick it up, that's the pin that the dog clutch pushes on. It's a little bit of a rounded end, so it can move around. So as the dog clutch gets pushed, there's a neutral now. If I push it more forward, it will be in reverse. If I put it in neutral again, or I let it go, it's in forward gear again. So naturally, when you start the motor the first time, it's always in neutral, selected in neutral, then forward, then reverse. So that's basically what that does there. And then you've got this bearing over here. This bearing is press fit onto this gear over here, and that goes in there as well, into that housing as well, into that thing, but that actually seats in here. There's a machine gauge which seats in. I'm not going to tap it in now, but this is what they call your bearing carrier. So the bearing carrier sits there, and inside this bearing carrier, let's just drop that one bearing out quickly. Okay, drop that out. Let's turn it over. You see you've got a little needle bearing that I've just put on here. So the needle bearing actually goes down in here, and this internal part here, it gets pressed in there. Okay, and then at the top of it, you will have 2 lip seals that press down on it, press down into it. They will normally be installed in that way. Okay, so that goes push fit into there, into this area here, and yeah, that goes. It will normally go, the prop shaft will go through the middle of it, so that those oil seals that sit here will then seal to not let oil come out this side, and you will take this thing, and this will be push fitted and press fitted kind of into there. And once that is press fit into there, oh wait, I've skipped one step here. You also have this. So if you've got your bearing on, wonder if I can do this while I'm holding a very miserable camera. There we go. Okay, so that will be on there. It will obviously be press fit onto that gear, and you'll have this washer unit that also goes on there with the O-ring. Okay, and just to take it off again, what actually happens is, as this thing is standing here, this O-ring fits on there. If I can get it to stay there now. It fits on there, and this washer presses down on it there, creating a seal like that, and once I push that in there, that will seal on that machined edge over there. Okay, so that goes in, lip seals are in, will go in, and then you will have a castle nut, which is this one over here, and that actually screws into the housing there. You can see it's got thread on, and there's thread, and it screws onto that, holding the whole system in place. Your prop shaft, drive shaft, will go down this chamber over here. If you look right at the bottom, there's a little bit of a machined end there. Let me see if I've got a screwdriver to show you better. There, right. Oh, it's a bit difficult. Right at the bottom there, there's a machined area in the center there, and that's where your needle bearing sits at the bottom. You come up, just for interest's sake, there's what looks like a hole. If you're looking there where the screwdriver edge is, it looks like a bit of a hole. Look down there. It's not a hole. Look over on this side on the casting. There you'll see there's casted in. So it's not a hole. It's just like a oil bypass for the oil to circulate throughout the top part of the gearbox properly. So yeah, that's that. And the casting that we've covered. Now we've got the prop shaft going at the top there. So you've got the bottom needle bearing, And then on the second ridge here, around about where my finger is now, that's where your other bearing sits, your seat, outer race of your bearing. And at the top here, this part is where your other cup, just see if I can get it there, where this part with that seal goes in. So in other words, let's say the prop shaft is in there, that will go in like that. It's got little locating pins casted on it, and that will sit in like that. Okay, just on the main shaft, that's where it links into your motor. As you stick your lower unit back onto the outboard, that will have a space where that slots into on the motor. Coming down the main shaft, you will have a bearing over here. That bearing over here, as I explained earlier, is the bearing that sits on this lower race over there. There's obviously a external part, outer race of the bearing that press fits in there, and that just drops into that. Okay, and you'll have the I call it a oil sleeve. I don't really know what the proper name for it is, but if I'm looking at it, it's got little holes through it, and it's got little veins on the side there to direct oil. Because obviously as oil pressurizes, it will direct oil through the inner tube and the outer tube and lubricate this whole chamber down there will be lubricated with oil, so that you make sure you've got proper distribution of oil throughout the lower unit. Okay, so that one goes in there. We know now where that bearing sits. We know where the needle bearing sits. It goes over this shaft. Needle bearing is right at the bottom there, as I indicated earlier on. And that will keep your main shaft properly centered. And we're getting to this. You see this little gear over here. I think they call it your pinion gear. This little gear goes onto here. And the main shaft is that's the way the main shaft will link to the prop shaft. In other words, that will sit in a spot like that. So whatever gear you engage, the shaft will either go left or right or stay in a neutral position. Well, I'm wrong there. The motor turns the shaft constantly. If you're neutral, the shaft will turn, but none of the gears will be engaged here, so the prop shaft won't be doing anything. This main shaft will spin, but the prop won't be turning. And the moment you engage the dog clutch, either in forward or in reverse, it will activate forward gear, that one over there, or reverse gear, this one over here. And that's how your motor will then turn. So that's covered on there. I did show you the dog clutch, but let me just quickly show you. If you take that off, or let me just turn it around like that. Let's just drop that pin out. Okay, right, so you can see the dog clutch has got teeth, and the gear inside has got teeth. Okay, so if I do like on this one on the back, you will see they are now engaged. And if you see, it can only go, we'll have a little bit of play on it because of the mechanism, how it works. But if I disengage, that gear is loose and it cannot turn. The shaft cannot turn on its own. Okay, so that is what engages the gear. And the same on this side, same and same. Forward, reverse works the same principle. So as that little dog clutch moves either that way or that way, the side, it will be either in forward position or in reverse position. In the top unit here, you will see what the problem is with this, or one of the problems. You'll see there's a lot of wear here, and there's a groove here where somebody tried to remove this unit, and there's another groove over there, and then you'll see a lot of wear over here. So if I am assuming it correctly, what seems to have happened here prior was that this gearbox was either run with just water in it, no oil, or no oil at all. So what happens is then the bearing seizes up, and as the bearing seizes up, which would be this type of bearing here, wouldn't be this specific bearing, somebody worked on it prior to that, so it's not that. So this bearing seizes up, eventually it will come apart, and those little needle rollers will become loose objects inside this gearbox. And that's the only thing I can see here that could possibly have damaged this thing that much, because there's absolutely no water in this, should be no water in the gearbox. So there's no ways that it could be water that corroded it or worn it away like that. That is metal pieces and parts. And then obviously, because of this unit here slotting in, as I said, with the O-ring, it slots in. Slots in there. There's this unit sits there, and you've got all that stuff happening on the inside and pieces of metal, and it pushes this thing into such a position that you can't get it out. And somebody tried to pry it from there. And I think that is where most of the damage came from. So what happens then, if you look at those little grooves, even though the rest of the surface would maybe be workable, which I don't believe because it's a little bit of a rattle fit, this O-ring part should go tight fit in there. I should really have to force it in there, so it can seal properly with the oil going in there. If I look at it, that somebody put something in here somewhere to try and pry it from there. Hence also, if you look at this is a second-hand replacement part, but if you look at the previous one from when I stripped the gearbox and got it from the client, this was in a separate part form, and this was the other half of it. So this thing is like what they did here. You can see there's Sikaflex there was Sikaflex there. We cleaned up a bit of it, but basically that should have been one molded piece, and it was not, because somebody already fiddled around with this thing. And try it, put it back together the way it should look. It should look like that. You can see there they've actually matching. This is the second-hand one, and this is the one that came out there. So this thing broke off, so they decided, no, not worries, I'll use Sikaflex and I'll just force it in here. This was all, this whole edge here was covered in Sikaflex. That was completely filled up with Sikaflex as they tried to get the gearbox to work. What they would have seen if they did pressure test the gearbox, they would have seen it wouldn't work, and it would have leaked, and they could have phoned the client, or my honest opinion, could have phoned the client long before that, because if you see this and you don't know that there's a problem, then yeah, me as a non-expert can see there's a problem. So clearly somebody that does it every day should have seen there's a big problem here. So okay, so that side sorted and covered, I think, most of it. And what I can tell you guys about it, I hope if you do have a problem like this, look, basically Yamaha gearboxes kind of all work on the same principle. So whether it's bigger or smaller, it's going to be the same type of scenario. Hopefully you guys have learned something. Just to show you something as I slot this thing in, maybe I haven't covered that yet, but let's say that is correctly in place. Then you will have your new pump housing, you will have the internal of the pump casing, and you will have this little unit over here. So remember, this is an old thing. I'm just trying to show you quickly the same. You see that plate for the pump, the inner of the pressure plate for the pump, if you want to call it that, and it's got a little groove so you know more or less where you are. And then you would look at this little casing over here. That's the new internal part, and that would slide over here. If there was a main shaft, this would have slid over the main shaft, and that would sit something like that. Am I correct? Yeah. And that would say something like that. So in other words, this would be where your main shaft goes through, and this part over here would be where your pipe goes in that feeds water up to the engine block and keeps the motor cool. So what happened here is, as I explained on my previous videos, this part was worn away completely. We built it up now. So what happened when it was worn away, the exhaust gases came past here, melted the pump casing. If I've got the old pump casing, I can still show you. There we go. Melted the old pump casing. In turn, also melted the impeller on the inside. And in turn, outboard had no water. Could get no water, which I can fully understand. There is a new impeller here. I don't have the old impeller anymore. But there's a new impeller. There's new gaskets, everything. Guys, if you can't get spare parts, here's a little tip and a trick. These bearings, local bearing supplier. There's a number on a bearing. I wonder if I can see it through the camera here. Maybe on the wrong side. No, there we are. The flashlight is making too much of a light, but you will vaguely see there is a number on the bearing. If you look at it with your naked eye, it's a normal bearing. This is what they call a sealed bearing. Sealed bearing you can buy at any of your decent bearing suppliers. You'll have another thrust bearing, they call those ones, those tapered ones. Thrust bearings you will buy. There's a number on there again. If I'm looking at it correctly, yep, there's numbers on there. I must just clean it up a bit. There's numbers on there. You can buy that at your local bearing supplier. You can buy that at your local bearing supplier. And you can even buy these little needle bearings at your local supplier. I just want to see. Yeah, you can't see it with the damn flashlight on of the video camera, but there's numbers on this little ridge here that I can clearly read. NSK bearings. Is what it adding. I'm not saying you should use NSK. I'm not promoting anybody. I'm just saying look around. The same with the lip seals, guys. These lip seals all have sizes and numbers on them. If they don't, take a vernier, measure it. You need to have the thickness of the thing. You need to have the inner diameter, and you need to have the outer diameter. That's it. That's all you need for that. You can buy the lip seals loose. You can buy the bearings loose. You can even buy the O-rings. We've got a company in Cape Town, South Africa, which we call BMG, Bearing Man Group, where we can buy these things loose. If they don't have, there's various bearing suppliers in Cape Town. So yeah, by us, I'm sure everywhere. We are not unique, so you can buy these things anywhere. Trying to think what I can show you guys more, but I think we've covered everything. Okay, yeah. Here's a little thing I want to show you. Yes, they are destroyed now. Well, the bearings were stuffed before that. Okay, guys, this is not my hack. I see the young kids call it a life hack. This is not my life hack. I got this life hack from a mate of mine that showed me something again. Because normally these units will be, this is the race for that bearing, by the way. That would have fit over that bearing. Now, never again. But if I can show you that bearing as it has to go into the back there, would have been that would have been your outer race of your bearing. And this is normally, there's a little bit of it still smooth that you can see. This is normally how smooth it is inside. That slots over that bearing, and that's where the bearing runs against or runs in. So what the problem with this is, these things are press fit and they have to be extracted, and you don't always have the correct bearing extractor with you. What do? As it sits in the casing there, the back, you take a welding rod and you weld on the inner race of the bearing. it heats it up and it pulls it. You're not heating the outside, you're actually heating the inside. And because that and the welding, it will pull it. It will want to narrow this race with heat. It's extreme heat. It will narrow this race, and by narrowing the race, you literally will take this whole unit, you'll just tip it over, and you'll just give it a light tap at the back, and that inner race will fall out. No need for funny equipment to get it done. That's my freebie life hack that I also only recently learned. Normally I would take a proper bearing extractor, but you know what, something happens while you're on holiday somewhere. You might not have the proper tools with you, and then tips and tricks like this help you a lot. That's it, guys. Yeah, that's it from me, Boat Buddy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I still enjoy and love making these things. Love sharing info, especially if we can get the info for free, then it's a bonus. Guys, like my page, subscribe to it, please share it with your mates. I'm trying to get this account to grow, and yeah, hopefully I can get to 1,000 followers, and the moment I get to 1,000 followers, the account will be monetized. And if the account is monetized, then I can do a lot more videos for you guys. I'm looking at getting a couple of guys that have specific fields in the boat industry, that specific things that they do and are unique to. Maybe even guys that have got their own branded hull for boats they manufacture, outboard motor guys that that supply outboards. Have a chat with them, get a bit of input from them on various things, electronics, navigation equipment, fish finders, and so forth and so forth. The idea behind this whole page is to get as much info out there as I can possibly get out, and yeah, maybe assist you guys as far as possible. And guys, if you've got any questions, please post it in the comments. I am generally very quick on that, and I generally reply very quickly on that. And if there's something you're looking for that I can maybe assist you with, let me know as well, and I'll see what I can do for you guys. Like, subscribe, share, and thank you for the support, guys. Enjoy it.